Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-minute histories videos. Before we talk about the building behind me, the Women's Industrial Exchange here on Charles and Pleasant Streets, I have to start with two words: holy cow. And the holy cow is because this video is our 150th video. If somebody had come to me 15 months ago and said, what do you think about the idea of producing 150 videos on different historic places in Baltimore, I would have said, you're crazy. But COVID makes strange bedfellows. And in truth, I can't think of a better way to spend the last 15 months than this crash course in Baltimore history. Have to also say thank you to my colleague Molly Ricks. I cannot think of anybody on planet Earth who has done what she's done. In the last 15 months, she's learned how to become a video producer. She researches and finds all of the historic images that go into each of these, and she puts it all together, sometimes on only an hour or two's notice. It's really tremendous. She's now done it 150 times, so thank you, Molly. Have to also say thanks to everybody who has contributed. Your $5 contributions or $25 or more have literally kept us going, so thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, on to today's video, the Women's Industrial Exchange, and that's woman with an A, not an E. It got started in 1880 and really has its roots before then. But before we jump into our industrial exchange, I thought maybe we'd talk a little bit about the national exchange movement. It traces itself back to 1832 in Philadelphia. A group called the Philadelphia Ladies Depository was started way back then. And its mission, and this is going to be similar to all the exchanges, was really at the core to provide a consignment shop so that women could make hand-crafted products and then have an outlet to sell them to the general public. In 1832, we had the Philadelphia Group. In 1854, the Brooklyn Female Empowerment Society. And then in 1856, the New Brunswick in New Jersey, Women's Depository and Exchange. And these early groups and many of the groups really also got started to help women who had been of some means and then fallen into hard times. And the consignment shops allowed women to sell their handmade products anonymously so that they wouldn't lose social standing in their social circles. I am not sure what happened in the 1880s, but in the 1880s, the exchange movement took off. In 1880, there were 7 exchanges across the country. In 1890, there were 72 different exchanges. Ours got its start in 1880, but really traces its roots back to the years just after the Civil War, when a woman named G. Harmon Brown, she was a Quaker, and she really opened up her living room to become a consignment shop. And she had women who needed help financially, made goods at home, and then she had her friends and family and visitors and really anybody allowed in on certain days to buy these really what were apparently high quality, really great products. In 1880, our Mrs. Brown and her friends had really succeeded and started renting a storefront on Saratoga and Holiday Street, and that was a big boom. And then in 1882, they got the state General Assembly to give them a charter. They incorporated as a nonprofit organization. And let me read you their just one sentence mission. It was for the purpose of endeavoring by sympathy and practical aid to encourage and help needy women to help themselves by procuring for them and establishing a sales room for the sale of women's work. That was what they were all about. In 1889, they bought the building here on Charles and Pleasant Streets. It actually got its start in 1815 as a house. This was at a time when Baltimore was just beginning to expand beyond its original boundaries at Saratoga Street. So this house was built by one of those early sort of northward seeking pioneers. In 1860, it had become a boarding house and an enormous addition added on the back. And then in 1889, the Women's Industrial Exchange bought it as their showroom. By about 1900 or late 1800s, they had added a tea room onto it, the tea room at the Women's Industrial Exchange, or really just the tea room. And I think it got started kind of as old-fashioned, and then it never changed. It, over the years, continued always to serve chicken salad and deviled eggs, and of course, the famous tomato aspic. I will confess that when I first came to Baltimore, somebody treated me to lunch there, here, and I had to have a little education on what aspic was and why in the world anybody would put tomatoes into it. And I think I remember almost liking it. But having a tea room here on Charles Street really made sense back around 1900. And that's for two reasons. One is that at that time, there were loads of fraternal organizations in Baltimore and across the country, but not very many organizations for women. And this allowed women a place to meet. The second is Charles Street had become Baltimore's premier shopping destination. And if you were a lady and you were out shopping here and it was lunchtime, you really had nowhere to eat. There were bars that served some sorts of probably mediocre food, but if you were a lady, that was not the place for you. So this allowed women who were shopping to eat lunch as well. But they did not eat lunch. They always had lunch in here. That's what went on. And that provided a really needed service. The showroom, the consignment shop, got its big plate glass window around that time as well. Really premier real estate here on Charles Street. Over the years, alas, tomato aspic and the consignment goods didn't last, although they had a good run. And I know that many of us have sock monkeys, the famous sock monkeys sold here at the Women's Industrial Exchange. In our families, every new baby got one. But it didn't last, and last year the board of directors of the exchange decided to fold up for good. Not an easy decision for sure, but they made sure that the mission of the organization and the building went into good hands. And I want to say a special thank you to a friend of mine, Jenny Hope, who was chair of the board and did such a fantastic job steering it in the right direction. A year ago, the building changed hands and is now the Marian House, owned by the Marian House. They are another nonprofit organization dedicated to helping women. Their mission, let me read you their mission. It says they are women moving from dependence to independence. So although we no longer have an industrial exchange here in Baltimore, and I think nationally we're down to only a handful, fewer than 10, although we don't have an industrial exchange anymore, we still have this wonderful 1815 building that for nearly 150 years was home to the industrial exchange, and its mission of helping women is carrying on. All right, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.